coming up on this episode, we will go over chapter 3 of The Henchman. I'll read that for you. This is where Mr. Grimm is trying to find Lucas, and he's going to get some information to help him have some direction here. But first, go into the description and click on the link there for a free epic fantasy ebook. And also remember to like and subscribe and share and all of that fun stuff. All right, let's get to it. Welcome back to Great Stories Change the World. This is the YouTube channel where a fantasy science fiction author, that is me, goes over different books, stories, movies, all of those things to kind of look at how we tell great stories, or maybe how we don't tell great stories. And I put some of this into practice, and that's what I'm doing on this episode, where I'm going over a new story that I'm writing in real time, and you can see the chapters and the development as I go to kind of help show you where I'm doing some things and how I do things, okay? So that's what I'm doing today, because I do believe that great stories change the world. I do believe that great stories inspire people, help us to become better people. And boy, do we need that in our world today, right? But first, I'm going to go over some amazing book reviews before I get into the chapter, which I'll read here in just a couple minutes. But first, I want to get into this book called The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. Now, on Book Talk and other things on, I think, TikTok and maybe Instagram, I've seen this book being recommended more than twice or 3 times probably. And when they described it, I thought, man, that looks like a book I would really enjoy. But this is a self-published independent book, so I couldn't find it in my library. So I had to purchase it. I took a risk, and it's a thick book. As you can see, it's a thick book. It's got a great cover, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I highly recommend this book. It's a little graphic. Some of the violence is a little graphic in a couple of the battle scenes, but man, the battle scenes are brutal. The characters are amazing. And she, the writer, does some amazing things in this book with characters and the flow of the book and some decisions that she makes. And I really, really enjoyed it. I just tore through this book. So check this one out. I've also been reading through The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Now, if you don't know who Rick Rubin is, he is a music producer, and he was really popular through the 80s and then a little into the 90s. But man, he's been around creatives his whole life. He's been a creative his whole life. And this book has got some great insights and great suggestions and inspiration for people who want to be any sort of artist or creative. And I'm about halfway through it, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm making notes and using some quotes from it and some of the things that I'm doing. So I really highly recommend this book, The Creative Act. All right. And lastly, I'm just going to point out again my book, and I don't have it yet, but there's a little feathered quill sign there on that you can see behind me, because for my book, if you don't know, it just received a finalist award in the Feathered Quill, the fantasy section of Feathered Quill. And that's actually a pretty high honor. It's a really difficult thing to get. So check out my book. Now, I also wanted to make a couple comments on the book that I'm writing along the way and sharing with you as I write it chapter by chapter, The Henchman. Now, I have kind of a general idea for probably 3, maybe 4 novellas sort of length to this. So I don't expect this to go on all year, maybe 12 to 15 weeks, chapters or so. But what I found doing this is that as a rough draft, I really want to go back and fix things. Like, even though I revise things and make sure things flow pretty well, as the story is progressing, I want to go back to chapter 1 and fix some things and make things better and make things have more continuity. But I still think it's good, but it just goes to show how revision makes things better. And it's something I really encourage people When they write a rough draft, don't worry about it being perfect yet. Just get it out there, because once you get it out of you, get the rough draft out of you, then you can go back and revise and make it great. Maybe not perfect, because the story is never perfect, but you can make it great. You can make it amazing and put all the different things in there that you want. So I'm going to go over chapter 3 today, and this is called Finding Treasure, chapter 3. And in this, Mr. Grimm starts to connect with some of his old haunts and tries to find some information of where he can begin to look for the boy Lucas. All right, so let's do it. Check it out. Chapter 3, Finding Treasure. People gave me a wide berth through the streets of Landon. I wore my thick leather vest over my nice shirt, not helping in the heat, and a few people probably knew my face, but the real reason people avoided me was what hung on my belt. Bone Wrecker bounced against my thigh, uncomfortable but necessary. The weapon might be more infamous than me, although we traveled together. Most Dygall henchmen went nameless. A few gained enough popularity to gain a reputation. Reputation was one reason I had never washed the blood off the hammer. A message, if you will. I wondered if I would add fresh blood to the hammer today. Probably not with my first visit, though. Heading to the east, toward the part of the city the elves held, I branched down a narrow side street. High buildings on either side cast shadows, and those shadows deepened once I ducked into an alleyway. My eyes adjusted, and I wove my way through more dark paths, ensuring I wasn't followed. I arrived at the marked half-rotted wooden door, one even Thunderpaws would be able to smash in, but he wasn't here. I knocked. Along with the bed-coiner guild mark, the sour smell of Sorsos met me. I knocked once more, probably awaking the woman inside. It was the middle of the day, and her work kept her up late. But the middle of the day was better for me not to be seen. A third knock, and rustling sounded from within. A woman's voice said, "Who's there?" I leaned closer to the door. "It's me." "Shog me." Her footfalls got a little louder, and a latch clicked. The door opened. The scent of Sorsos suddenly overwhelmed me. Even though I expected it, I flinched. Sorsos was the free drug provided by the Cryan Empire when they controlled the lands of humanity. The elven propaganda told us the substance would make us feel better, heal us. However, it was designed to calm the population, and it became highly addictive. A third or more humans in the city suffered through their bondage, many turning to crime to get more. The Cryan Empire gave it free, but they rationed it too. The resulting crime and need gave others power, people like the Dygall and my boss. The woman at the doorway stood as tall as my shoulder. Her longer light brown hair, tangled from sleep, fell halfway down her back. She had bags under her eyes, and she wore only a red silken robe. She rolled her eyes. "Grimm, what do you want?" The stench of her breath cut through the Sorsos. "Hey, Dana." Dana was a bed coiner, so named because they let men or women in their bed for money. Dana used most of her coin on Sorsos and maybe cheap whiskey. She squinted. "Come back later. It's early." I scanned the dark alley. "Can I come in?" I reached inside my leather vest and produced a flask. Dana's eyes widened. She cleared her throat and stepped aside from my wider frame to enter. I moved through a short, narrow hallway into the small room beyond, functionally furnished with a wash basin, a minimal stove, a dresser with a mirror, and a bed. Drug paraphernalia covered the dresser. Dana closed the door behind us and followed me. Standing next to the bed, I turned to her and extended the flask. Dana eyed me suspiciously and grabbed the flask. She uncorked it and took a sip. After breathing in sharply, she said, "Not bad. Now what do you want?" She raised a brow at the bed, suggestively. "No, thank you," I said. "I need information." While my hammer could destroy bones, secrets proved to be a more worthwhile weapon. Bed coiners could be great sources of those, but they had to be connected with the right customers, men who knew things and let those things slip to a woman they paid for shogging. There weren't many like that, and then you had to find the right bed coiner. Despite the current stench, Dana was a pearl in crit. She served Daigal lords, henchmen, and even elves. She also spoke to others in her guild. I found her 4 years ago and paid her well. Dana scoffed. "You know, most come here for something different." "I like to keep it about business," I said. She gestured over at the bed. "That's business too." "You know what I mean." After glancing over my vest and the hammer, she said, "You dress serious. You after somebody." "Gotta find him first," I said. "That's why I'm here." "Fine," she blew out a breath. "What you got?" "You heard about Lucas?" Dana narrowed her eyes. "Zoe's little one?" I hesitated. "Yeah, Tomas's son." "No, what about him?" "He's been taken." Now her eyes widened. "By who?" "Don't know. That's why I'm here. You hear rumblings?" "Oh, there's always rumblings," she said. "I hear lots." "About the boy?" "Not about the boy." I rubbed my chin. "What about anyone trying to move against Tomas?" "Tomas is new to his position. Could be anyone." "Exactly," I said. Dana took a deep breath. "There's one lord looking to make some kind of move, or some say." "Some?" "Maybe one of his henchmen come see me," Dana said. "Maybe he say his lord pretty breaking upset about Tomas getting High Lord of the North once Lorcan had his head all crushed." I stared at her for a moment. In some ways, every one of the minor lords in the North would feel slighted Tomas was chosen, but two rose to the top of my mind. Hugo or Enzo? "Both good guesses," Dana said, "but this thug worked for Hugo." "Okay," I said. Dana scanned me. "You gonna go there next?" "Good a place as any." "What about the elves or the south? Any news?" "The elves are quiet, hiding behind the glady and shields." Dana shrugged. "Lord Thread doing much the same in the south. Ain't seen many from Thren's streets in a bit." With a final nod, I turned to go, but she touched my arm. I paused and met her eyes. "I hear rumblings about you, too," she said. "Me?" "Like I said, I hear things." "What about?" "Some talk like you gonna put up that hammer for good," she said. "Trying to be a carpenter or some crit." I lowered my eyes. "Soon, after I find Lucas." Dana raised a brow. "Yeah? Why carpenter?" I sniffed. "Been destroying things most of my life. Thought maybe I could build something for what years I got ahead." She nodded. "I see, but don't a tree or some such got to be destroyed to build with wood?" I scowled at her. She continued talking, not waiting for an answer. "You really think you're gonna give it all up?" "Sure," I said. "Why not?" Dana smirked and pointed at the hammer at my side. "Bone wrecker a part of you. You lose that hammer, you lose your soul." I took a deep breath, remaining silent. She patted the side of my arm. "Forgive me, just a bed coiner talking. You go knock down some doors with your hammer and find the boy. He needs you. Well, that was chapter 3. In the comments, let me know what you thought of it. And remember to like, subscribe, share, go into the description, download that free ebook, all of that. All right. Talk to you later.